Alright, what's up guys? So in this video this week I made this desk and its matching twin out of walnut for my son. So this one, if you guys could do me a big favor and comment below what kind of wood you think this is. I got it in a big bunch from this old farmer guy, and it's supposed to all be white oak. He had milled it himself like 10 years ago, but there's definitely a portion of it that is different. And it's darker, it's a little bit harder. It still has a similar grain pattern than the white oak, but it's definitely different. So I think it's black oak from what I can see, what I've researched, but someone who knows more about this and is good at identifying wood, please comment below. Let me know what you think it is. But overall, I think they turned out great. I did this one in two-tone, which I really like how it looked. We both just needed a desk. My son had been wanting something to study on, read on, and put his various toys and monster trucks on, all that kind of stuff. And I'd need something to make my videos, just general computer stuff, you know, getting that gaming in, doing a little bit of work on the side. You know how it goes. But it was a great project. I had a lot of fun. We did a lot of different stuff. So stay tuned, and thanks guys for watching. I hope you enjoy. All right. So starting off the project is just, you know, your usual, getting the wood milled, getting everything flat and straight as you can. The better you get at that, the easier everything is going forward. I remember this is my phase when I was trying to be cool like Ishitani with my sweet little Milwaukee keychain tape measure over there, and oh my gosh, I don't know what that is in the back of my head. I had to pause this and go look in the mirror. It's gone now, so don't worry about me. I'll live, but whatever it is, I'm glad it's gone. Throwing everything on, just trying to keep it straight. So my disc is going to be this one I'm working on right now. That is, I think it's black oak, and like I said in the beginning, if you know what it is and you're just a wizard, then give me a comment and let me know what you think that wood is. I love how it turned out. It has some buggy and character in it, and it's perfect for myself and my desk. I know a lot of people like this clear and uniform wood as I can get, and that tends not to be the case for me and my project. So you'll see a little bit more variation in the stuff I do, but got both the tops glued up, and that's kind of like my basis for where I started with everything. And then I'll do some more milling for the bottoms after we cleaned up the bottom and like the case, and then obviously the outside, so we'll go from there. So as you know, if you watched my last video on making the table, I'm still a little bit new to this hand plane, but the nice thing is I, being a knife maker, can sharpen this myself, so I kind of have a little bit of leeway to kind of go to town with this thing, and then when I need to, I can sharpen it and get it figured out. This is a cheap one. I just got it at Home Depot. As you can see, planing is fun for everybody, so Izzy had a good time making some shavings, but got all the glue off and got the generic, you know, just everything flattened up the best I could. These are the panels for the oak desk of mine. I'm just gluing these up to make the box. And then obviously we'll do the same thing in walnut. Like I said in the beginning, there's going to be some transition between both of them. So you'll see walnut and you'll see oak, and basically they're two desks, one out of walnut and one out of oak. And I'll kind of go back and forth just to make sure I get every part of the process. But I'm going to trim up these panels, and I ended up doing these. So this is basically setting the depth of the box, the drawer, the bank of drawer boxes that you saw on the bottom left side. And I ended up doing these a little bit more narrow, or not as deep, and that was purely so I could fit them in my table saw sled. I think it's like 16 inches deep, and my boxes here were going to be like 17 or 18 inches, so I figured an inch would save me a lot of time in cutting them up. So it worked out good too, because they're not too big for the desk. I think it was like the proper size. I don't show it, or I haven't showed it on this particular video, but I CAD everything in Fusion 360 before, so I have a general idea of how it's going to be. But part of what I like about building is being able to kind of change that as you go along, you know, especially when it's my own piece of furniture for myself. I can do whatever I want to it, and so sometimes I make some game time decisions during the build, and that's what I did with this one. Not a big change, but I'm glad with how it turned out. Right now I'm just cutting the sizes, so the top, side panels, bottom panel, I'm cutting all of those so that I can have them in a little bit, I guess, a rough size to then put them together. And like I said before, you got the oak, and then you'll switch to the walnut and kind of try to get these done concurrently.
What?
Here I'm busting out the new Dado set from Frood. When I buy stuff, I try to find like that happy medium of like kind of a mid-range as far as price, but the best quality you can get for that. And I looked at like the forest ones, but man, that set was like $400, and this one was still $200, so it was a lot. And I really liked the chippers in it, had a lot of teeth, and had a lot of good reviews, and I was happy with the cut quality I got from it. It ended up being great, so this is the first time I've used it, and I really liked it so far. Just throwing it on the old saw stop, I still can't get over how cool the braking technology is. I'm glad I haven't had to use it yet, but obviously you had to switch the cartridge out to the bigger, beefier one for these Dado stacks. So like I said before, I did this part of the desk, the box joints. I don't know, I just like these finger joints. They add a cool little detail to a lot of these. And yes, I know this is kind of sketchy right here, getting this first initial cut. But if you haven't seen one of these jigs that I'm using, this is just like a table saw sled, and go Google Katz Moses finger joints, or I think Bourbon Moth does one too. Those guys do a fantastic job of how to set those up, and once you get them set up, they're great. Here you can see me in my usual pooping my pants of gluing up a box, and it gets a little bit better, but holy crap, every time I glue up one of these boxes, it's a total nightmare. And I think I'm gonna, you saw I put those clamping calls on, but they didn't quite stay on very well like they do in everyone else's YouTube videos, and before you know it, I'm just loading the thing with clamps. So my advice would be just have a crap ton of clamps available. Here I'm using, I got this 3x3 sheet of Lexan, like this polycarbonate plastic, just off of Amazon. And I thought when I bought it, it was like a foot by a foot, and I was going to use it for a specific thing, so I accidentally got way too much, but I'm glad I did, because I'll use it a couple times in this video to make templates and like little router fences and stuff. But this is like a flush trim setup. If you didn't notice, right here I took a little bit more out of the fence, and it worked really good. Just basically something to flush trim the finger joints after it's all done. This is the first cameo. Kids love to come out and help from time to time, so I like to involve them whenever I can. I hope they like doing this stuff as much as I do. So after that, I put a round over, I think it's a 1/2 inch round over on the router, and I put that on all the corners of this, which I liked, especially with the finger joints. I thought it made kind of accentuated them and made it a cool detail of the whole box, and it just goes with kind of the style of the box. This one, like I said, the glue up was a total nightmare. I like to sometimes trim the fronts and the sides like a 1/2 saw blades width, just to get everything perfectly smooth. It helps with sanding and just lining things up later, but just kind of squares everything up. So run this guy through, just get it nice and even and ready for the next step. So like I said before, I did the oak one with the finger joints, and then I did this walnut one as like a 45-degree waterfall with splines in it. And they're both cool. They're just different ways of doing it. You gotta just make sure everything's super flat when you're doing these waterfall type tables. If they're not, then you just don't get as good of a joint. I dominoed this all together, which if you do dominoes, I put that tape in there to clean up the glue, but one thing to remember is if you put that tape there, you got to pull the tape off when the glue is fairly fresh, because if you wait till it's dry, then all you're doing is making a bunch of blue junk to have to try and peel off out of the dried glue. So if you put that tape on to get your glue up a little bit cleaner, just make sure to pull it all off in a reasonable time. But this went fairly smooth. Probably doesn't look like it, but it was smoother than the finger joint glue up. 45 degrees with everything, and clamped together pretty well. And every time I do one of these boxes like this, it turns out a little bit better, a little bit smoother, and takes less work to finish it. But all in all, I was happy with this part. It went pretty well. So like I said, it probably doesn't look like it went any smoother, but it did. My motto is just, if I haven't said it before, when in doubt, use more clamps. So it came together good, hammered off those clamping calls, pulled off all the tape, and now I'm putting some cuts in for the splines. And that's just a little spline box joint jig that I built. Lots of people do them so they're over the fence, but I find it's pretty easy just to hold it right on the fence. Right here I'm using, this is actually knife handle material. It's a burlap micarta. Micarta I guess is like a trademark name, but just a phenolic. And it was a piece I was never going to use for some knives, but I thought it'd be interesting and add a cool little detail to this particular piece to use this micarta. It's super tough stuff, so I thought it'd be good on that line anyways. But threw another round over on this, just like I did on the other desk. It's part of the design, and you'll see that joint there turned out pretty well. So more clamps for the win. I hope I got a shot of this when it's finished. Doesn't look that great now, but once it's got finish on it, that blue micarta really, it has a cool look to it. I like it. So turned out good on that aspect. Here, me and the minion are gluing together a bunch of boards for the leg pieces, and I just needed some thicker stock essentially, and I didn't want to take like 2 weeks gluing up each piece individually, so I did it one giant block, which, using my tried and true method of 15 more clamps than you think you could possibly need, it glued up really well, no gaps. It all looked good. So tons of glue, and obviously the help from Grace keeping everything still up there on the table. What? So once I got those out of the clamps, I put a clean edge on one side using this track saw, which if I had a joiner I might use that, but this works great for it, especially with what I'm doing. Then I took the other side and cleaned that up on the table saw. You can see I got a pretty solid smooth edge with that track saw. But the tricky thing with these legs is that they're all tapered, so it kind of adds a little bit of element to it. And you know, normally you could do like a taper on the table saw, but these are, I think, like, the legs were 30. Before I cut them down to size, they were like 35, 40 inches, so just too big for like a tapering jig. And I was able to use the track saw and just line it up with the line I needed to cut in there, and it worked really well. So I took each one, lined it up with the track saw. Obviously they're kind of narrower legs than that whole big track, so I used other pieces and scraps to support the other side of the track, but it worked really well. Got them all tapered and cut to very precise sizes, and I was happy with it.